Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. We all have goals. We're all pushing towards something, right?
hmm
And I think it's pretty much guaranteed that on that path, we're going to trip up a few times.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're going to stumble. We're going to face setbacks. It's kind of unavoidable.
So today, we thought it'd be interesting to really unpack this idea of failure, not as this scary show-stopping event,
Hmm.
but as something we can actually use to our advantage.
It's funny, isn't it? We often look at people who have achieved some level of success. People like Steve Jobs. He got kicked out of his own company at one point.
Wow, right.
Or Elon Musk, how many setbacks has he had with his various ventures? And even think about J.K. Rowling, all those rejections from publishers.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about that stuff when you see where they ended up.
Yeah.
Their paths to success were definitely not straight lines.
Right. We tend to see this highlight reel, the polished final product and not the messy behind the scenes iterative process that got them there.
So for you listening, the goal of this deep dive is to really help you shift your perspective on those moments where you might feel like you've taken a step back.
Exactly. Those moments where you think, oh man, this is it. I messed up. But it's not.
We want to explore how you can take those experiences, analyze them, understand them, and then actually use them to move you forward.
To transform failure into future success.
Okay, so let's jump right in. I think the first big hurdle is really changing how we even think about failure.
You hit the nail on the head, right? Because our common reaction is often this feeling of finality. It's like, I failed, so this is it. But what if we could completely flip that script?
Right, like how do we get past that knee-jerk reaction of, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm just not cut out for this? I mean, we've all been there.
Oh, absolutely. I've been there. Everyone's been there. It's about moving away from that emotional judgment, from that feeling of I failed, therefore I am.
Like a label, almost.
Exactly. A label. We need to move away from that and move towards a more objective assessment. It's about seeing failure as simply a data point. It's telling you that something about your approach or your strategy didn't quite work out the way you'd hoped.
It's feedback.
It's feedback, plain and simple.
So instead of asking yourself, why did this happen to me?
Yeah.
Which honestly is usually the first thing that pops into my head.
Oh, yeah, mine too. It's so natural to think that.
We need to reframe that question entirely.
Yes, absolutely. Instead of why me, we need to ask things like, what specific lessons can I take away from this situation?
How'd it go?
Okay, based on this, how can I improve or adjust my approach moving forward?
That instantly puts you back in the driver's seat, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not just a passive victim of this negative outcome. You have agency to actually learn from it.
You got it. It's about taking control.
So listener, the takeaway here is to catch yourself when you start spiraling after a setback.
Right.
Instead of dwelling on the negative, redirect your thoughts to asking those productive questions.
It's a game changer, really. And it highlights this important point. Success isn't about living some kind of failure-free existence.
Right, like no one gets through life without messing up at least a little bit.
Exactly. It's about being able to learn from those missteps quickly and efficiently. The quicker you can analyze what went wrong and adapt your strategy, the faster you're going to progress overall.
So, okay, we're starting to reframe failure as a learning opportunity. But how do we cultivate the kind of mindset that actually allows us to embrace those lessons? I think this ties into the whole growth mindset idea, right?
Absolutely. The work of Carol Dweck on fixed and growth mindsets is so relevant here. A fixed mindset is rooted in this belief that your talent, your abilities, your intelligence, they're kind of fixed. They're set in stone.
So you either have it or you don't.
Yeah, like you're born with a certain capacity and that's it. And when someone with this mindset fails, they often see it as a direct reflection of their inherent limitations. It's like, oh, I failed at this, so it must mean I'm just not capable. It's a really limiting perspective.
Right, so the outcome gets directly tied to your self-worth. So then what's the alternative? How do we develop that bounce back ability?
The growth mindset. It's the belief that your abilities and intelligence can be developed. They can be strengthened through hard work, dedication, effort, and learning from experiences, and that includes failures.
So instead of seeing a setback as a sign that you're inherently lacking, you see it as a signal that more effort or a different approach is needed.
Yes. With a growth mindset, you might say, okay, this didn't work out the way I wanted, but what can I learn from it? How can I approach it differently next time? It's a much more resilient and proactive stance.
It's like you're not ignoring the disappointment or pretending it doesn't sting, but you're seeing it as valuable information.
Exactly. And it points you towards areas where you can grow.
So for our listeners who might be leaning more towards that fixed mindset, What's a concrete step they can take to start cultivating a growth mindset?
One really practical technique is to reframe statements of limitation. So when you find yourself thinking or saying, I can't do this, try adding the word yet.
So simple, but
Right. It becomes, I can't do this yet. It transforms what feels like a permanent inability into a temporary stage in your journey.
you think you're acknowledging where you are right now, but also recognizing the potential for growth. It keeps the door open.
Absolutely. It's a tiny linguistic shift with a potentially huge impact on your perspective and possibilities.
Love that. Okay, so we're learning to see failure as feedback, and we're cultivating a growth mindset to use that feedback.
Right.
What's the next step in actually turning those failures into future wins?
The next step is to analyze what went wrong. But here's the key. You have to do this with a degree of emotional detachment. It's easy to get caught up in the feelings of disappointment or frustration.
Yeah, it's like the initial sting can cloud your judgment.
Exactly. And when we face failure, there are two really common but ultimately unproductive responses. We either become so overwhelmed by the emotions that we just give up, or we completely brush it aside and keep repeating the same actions hoping for a different result.
It's like either paralysis by emotion or a stubborn refusal to learn.
Exactly. Neither of those is going to lead to real growth.
So what's a more effective way to approach this analysis?
The key is to aim for an objective analysis, almost like a scientist examining the results of an experiment.
You're looking at the facts, not getting bogged down by the feelings.
Precisely. You want to step back from the emotional aspect, look at the situation dispassionately, and focus on the data. What exactly happened? What were the specific factors that led to this outcome?
I imagine that can be tough when you're still feeling kind of raw about the whole thing.
Mm.
Do you have any tips or questions that can help people do this kind of objective analysis?
A great tip is to write down the answers to some key questions. First, what specifically went wrong? Be as detailed as you can. Don't just say, oh, I messed up the presentation. Dig deeper.
What went wrong with the presentation?
Exactly. What specifically could have been better? Second, what are some things you could have done differently that might have led to a better outcome? This helps you identify areas for improvement.
It forces you to think about alternative approaches.
Right. And finally, and this is super important for moving forward, what is your very next action step based on what you've learned? This keeps you proactive and solution-oriented.
I love that. It's not just about understanding what happened, but about figuring out how to improve and then actually taking a step in that direction.
Exactly. The power here is in the combination of objective analysis and the formulation of a concrete plan for adjustment. Once you've done that, you've already started to turn that setback into a path towards success.
It's like you're already back on track,
Yeah.
just on a slightly different route. Okay, so we've learned to reframe failure, we're embracing a growth mindset, and we're analyzing our setbacks objectively. What's the ingredient that ties all of this together and actually helps us reach our goals?
The glue that holds it all together, it's persistence. Oftentimes the difference between those who ultimately succeed and those who don't isn't necessarily talent or luck. It's simply the willingness to keep going.
To keep going, especially when things get tough.
Especially when you want to throw in the towel. And giving up too soon is a major reason why so many goals never come to fruition.
So how do we cultivate that inner resilience, that determination to keep pushing forward?
It's about building mental toughness. Having some internal pep talks or reminders can be really helpful. When you feel like giving up, tell yourself things like, every no is bringing me closer to a yes.
Oh, I like that one.
Or every setback is actually setting the stage for a future comeback. These little mental anchors can really help you reframe those moments of doubt and maintain your momentum.
It's like giving yourself permission to keep going. And I think it's also incredibly helpful to remember that pretty much everyone who has achieved any level of success has faced their fair share of rejections and challenges.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Think about Walt Disney. He was told he lacked creativity.
By a newspaper editor, I think.
Yeah. And Oprah Winfrey, deemed unfit for television early on. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, he got cut from his high school team.
Yeah. It's wild to think about.
These are iconic figures who faced some serious roadblocks, but they didn't let those failures define them or stop them from pursuing their dreams.
It's a powerful reminder that moments of no don't have to be the end of the story.
Exactly. They didn't quit, and you shouldn't either. Letting a temporary setback derail your long-term goals is a disservice to your potential.
So we've talked about reframing our perspective on failure, cultivating a growth mindset, analyzing our mistakes, and the importance of persistence. Now, how do we take all of that and actually turn failure into motivation?
We need to stop seeing failure as a reason to feel defeated and start seeing it as fuel to propel us forward.
Like using it to your advantage.
Exactly. There's a saying, the best revenge is massive success. And I think that really resonates when you achieve something you've been working towards, especially after facing obstacles along the way.
It's like that feeling of accomplishment is even sweeter because of the challenges you've overcome.
Absolutely. So, how can we tap into that motivational potential? One approach is to use any doubt or skepticism from others as fuel. If someone tells you your goal is unrealistic, use that to prove them wrong.
Oh, I like that. Turn that negativity into motivation.
Yes. And also, reframe every mistake as a learning opportunity, not a sign of weakness or inadequacy. It's a chance to refine your approach and try again, this time with more knowledge.
So mistakes become valuable pieces of information.
Precisely. And finally, remember that discouragement is a temporary state. It's a feeling that will pass. But giving up makes the failure permanent.
That's such a powerful distinction. Feeling discouraged is natural, but it's a choice to let that feeling dictate your actions.
Exactly. And it brings us back to the idea that trying to avoid failure altogether is not only unrealistic, it might actually be holding you back.
So trying to play it safe all the time might mean you're missing out on opportunities to learn and grow.
Failure is a part of growth. It's a part of pushing boundaries and trying new things. In fact, those who try to avoid failure at all costs might be the very people who are missing out on the most valuable lessons.
So to bring this all together for you, listener, here's a challenge. Think about a recent failure you've experienced. Instead of focusing on the negative emotions, try to identify 3 specific lessons you learned from that situation.
And then most importantly, take action based on those lessons.
Use what you learned and try again.
Exactly. That's how you turn a setback into a stepping stone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into understanding and leveraging failure, we really want to encourage you to embrace these concepts. We know it's not always easy. Those initial feelings of disappointment can be tough. But by shifting your perspective, embracing a growth mindset, analyzing your setbacks, and using failure as motivation, you really can transform those seemingly negative experiences into opportunities for growth and success.
Remember, the path to any worthwhile goal is rarely a straight line. There will be bumps along the way. The key is to learn from those bumps, get back up, and keep moving forward.
And with that in mind, here's one final thought to leave you with. Imagine how your life and your ambitions could change if you truly embraced the idea of viewing every failure as a chance to learn and grow. How might that shift in perspective impact how you approach not just the specific situation you might be thinking about now, but all the challenges and goals you pursue in the future?
It's a powerful shift, and we hope this deep dive has helped you start making it.
Until next time.